Sometime in the middle of October, before a single chairlift has spun, before the snow guns have even been dragged out of storage, a large American mountain operator is sitting on something like $800 million in cash that it has not technically earned. Accountants don't call that profit. On the balance sheet, it shows up as a liability, deferred revenue, money owed back to customers in the form of ski days that haven't happened yet. And that pile of not yet earned cash is arguably the single most valuable asset the company controls all winter. Because here's what most people never think about. A ski resort isn't primarily in the business of moving people uphill. Strip away the marketing, and what you're looking at is a subscription company that happens to own a mountain, sitting on top of a land development company that happens to run a subscription. The snow is the excuse. The calendar is the product. Follow the cash for a second and it gets clearer. Season passes go on sale in March, sometimes earlier, for a winter that starts 8 or 9 months later. The lowest price of the year is offered when the ground is still muddy and nobody's thinking about ski boots. Then the price ratchets up in steps. A deadline in the spring, another in the summer, a final one somewhere around Labor Day, and after that the pass either disappears or costs so much more that buying it feels like a punishment for hesitating. Every one of those deadlines is engineered to pull payment forward into a period when the resort has almost no revenue coming in and a mountain full of expenses going out. Now think about what that money does between April and December. It sits there. And in an interest rate environment where short-term cash yields 4 or 5%, $800 million parked for even half a year throws off something in the neighborhood of $16 to $20 million in interest income alone. Money generated by the simple fact that customers paid early and the mountain hadn't opened yet. That's before a single lift ticket is scanned. It's the same trick insurance companies run with premiums, and it's why the float matters more than the margin on any individual visit. But the interest is honestly the smaller half of it. The bigger half is that the float means the resort doesn't have to borrow to survive its own off-season. And a ski area's off-season is brutal in a way that isn't obvious from the parking lot. Here's what that mountain actually costs. Roughly 70 to 80% of a ski area's operating expenses are fixed. They exist whether 400 people show up or 14,000 do. The lift maintenance crews work year-round. A modern 8-passenger gondola runs $20 to $30 million installed. And once it exists, it needs annual inspections, cable testing, drive rebuilds, and a mechanic on payroll who can't be laid off in June because nobody else knows that machine. Snowmaking systems are enormous capital projects. Miles of buried pipe, pump houses the size of small warehouses, compressed air plants, and running one can make a resort the single largest electricity customer in its entire county for 3 months straight, with power bills that climb into 7 figures in a cold December. Then there's insurance, which has been climbing hard. Liability coverage for an operation that puts strangers on steep terrain at speed, plus property coverage in wildfire-exposed mountain regions, is one of the fastest-growing line items in the industry. Add avalanche mitigation, ski patrol wages, dispatch, first aid, grooming fuel, and the crushing modern problem of workforce housing. Resorts now build and subsidize employee dorms because there is no attainable rental housing within 40 miles of most destination mountains. Some operators own hundreds of beds purely so lift operators have somewhere to sleep. All of that has to be paid for during months when the mountain is green. So the pass money isn't just nice to have, it's the working capital that keeps the whole machine alive through summer. Which raises the question that actually cracks this open. If the operating costs are that heavy, where's the profit hiding? Start with something most skiers have genuinely never considered. On most Western mountains, the resort does not own the mountain. Something like 120 ski areas in the United States operate on national forest land under a special use permit, including a huge share of the biggest names in Colorado, Utah, California, Wyoming, and Washington. The runs you ski, the trees you duck into, the summit you take a photo at, that's federal land, leased. And the fee structure is a sliding scale based on a percentage of adjusted gross revenue, generally landing somewhere in the low single digits, often between 1.5% and roughly 4%. Sit with what that implies. The resort's core mountain asset is rented at a percentage of sales from the government, which means the mountain itself can never be a huge margin business. Every extra dollar of lift revenue drags a permit fee behind it. So the real ownership, the part that's genuinely theirs, is the base area, the flat land at the bottom. And that's where the actual fortune gets made, because a chairlift isn't a revenue machine so much as a value machine for the dirt underneath it. Land at the base of a functioning ski mountain is worth several multiples of identical land 2 valleys over with no lift on it. Build the lift, and suddenly you can sell condominiums with ski and access at prices that have nothing to do with construction cost and everything to do with proximity to a moving cable. Developers have understood this for 60 years. The mountain is the amenity that prices the real estate. And the revenue doesn't stop at the closing table. Many resort communities carry a private real estate transfer assessment, typically 1 to 2% of the sale price, collected every single time that condo changes hands, forever, funneled to the association or the developer entity. Sell a $2 million unit that's $20,000 to $40,000, and it happens again the next time, and the time after that. It's a royalty on the existence of the mountain. Then there's the rental management layer, which is where the numbers get almost uncomfortable. Most of those base area condos sit empty most of the year, so owners hand them to the resort's property management arm to rent out nightly. The management company typically keeps a substantial cut of the nightly rate. The split varies, but a range of roughly 40 to 50% of gross rental income is common once you fold in the management fee, booking fees, cleaning margin, and maintenance markups. So the resort sold you the condo, takes a slice every time it trades, and then earns a commission renting it out to the skier who came for the pass the resort also sold. That's 4 bites of the same apple, and 3 of them have nothing to do with snow. Now here's the layer nobody photographs. The mountain earns in July. Scenic gondola rides for people who will never own skis. Lyft-served downhill mountain bike parks, where a day ticket can run $70 to $90, and the same Lyft that moved skiers in February moves bikes in August. Alpine coasters, ropes courses, zip lines, high-margin attractions built once and monetized for a decade. Summer concerts, youth camps, and the quietly enormous one, weddings and corporate conferences. A base lodge with a view and commercial kitchens can book a summer wedding weekend for $20,000 to $50,000, and a mid-size corporate retreat fills 200 hotel rooms midweek at a rate no leisure traveler would pay. That business is contracted months ahead, deposits collected in advance, and it lands during the exact stretch of the year when the lifts would otherwise be dead weight. So by the time the first storm rolls in, the resort has already banked past revenue, event deposits, lodging deposits, summer operations income, and interest on all of it. The winter, financially speaking, is the victory lap. Except the winter is where the second engine lives, and it's not lift tickets either. Once you've bought a pass, the resort's economics flip. Every day you show up is a cost. More lift hours, more patrol, more grooming diesel, more parking pressure. Your visit only becomes profitable if you spend on the way through. So the entire base village is designed around a customer who has already paid for the skiing and now has money labeled vacation, burning a hole in their pocket. Ski school is the sharpest example. Group lessons for kids frequently run $200 to $300 a day per child, and a family of 4 turns a single ski day into a 4-figure transaction before lunch. Rental shops are their own quiet machine. A rental package renting for $55 or $60 a day is built from gear the resort bought wholesale, and it pays for itself in 15 to 20 rental days, then earns pure margin for 4 or 5 seasons. Season-long ski storage lockers, ski valet, tuning, demo upgrades, childcare, cafeteria food priced like an airport terminal, all of it aimed at the person who already thinks they've paid. There's another stream underneath the pass ecosystem that almost no consumer sees. When your multi-mountain pass gets you a few days at a small independent hill in Michigan or New Hampshire, that hill doesn't eat the cost. The pass company pays it, a negotiated allocation per redemption, essentially a wholesale day rate. So the small resort trades brand independence for guaranteed cash from a giant, and the giant buys distribution and a reason for you to renew. It's a network deal wearing a ski jacket. And there's the add-on nobody reads carefully, pass protection. For roughly $30 to $50 extra, you can insure your season pass against injury, job loss, or a season that never materializes. Think about what that actually is. The resort collected your pass money in April and then sold you a small policy protecting you from the risk it just transferred to you. Both transactions happen before it snows. Now, the risks, because this model is not free money. The float cuts both ways. Deferred revenue is a promise, and when a season gets cut short, as happened across the industry in the spring of 2020, the operator faces a wall of credits, rollovers, and refunds against cash it may have already spent on summer capital projects. Climate variability keeps shortening reliable seasons at lower elevations, which pushes more capital into snowmaking, which raises fixed costs, which makes the resort even more dependent on pre-sold revenue. Insurance premiums keep climbing. Labor and housing costs have escalated faster than pass prices in many markets. And there's a subtler risk. Sell too many passes and the parking lots overflow, lift lines stretch, and the guest experience degrades, which is a brand problem that shows up not this season, but 2 renewals from now. Heavy capital spending funded with debt makes a bad snow year genuinely dangerous for a smaller operator with a leveraged balance sheet. And here's the honest caveat, because none of this describes every ski hill in America. There are hundreds of small community areas, town-owned hills, non-profit mountains, and cooperatively owned ski areas where there is no base village, no real estate arm, no summer conference business, and no float worth mentioning. Those places run on volunteers, a $200 family pass, a chili concession, and a 50-year-old double chair, and they exist to teach local kids to ski. They aren't running this playbook. They mostly can't. The model I've been describing is the destination resort and consolidated operator model, and it's worth being precise about that rather than painting the whole sport with one brush. But step back to that October balance sheet. $800 million of other people's money collected in spring, earning interest through summer, funding the payroll of a mountain nobody has skied yet, sitting on land whose value the lifts themselves created, surrounded by condominiums that pay a royalty every time they change hands. Not $1 of it required a single snowflake to fall. The snow, when it finally comes, isn't the business, it's the receipt. If this changed what you think you're buying the next time a past deadline email shows up in March, drop a like, it genuinely pushes these to more people. And subscribe, because I'm working my way through the everyday places running on math this backwards, and the next one is closer to home than you'd guess.